Do you have an impacted tooth? Do you need an expose and bond? Time for some PFOing so you know where you're going. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Ryan Packard, your local orthodontist at Packard Family Orthodontics. This is a topic that we have discussed before, the impacted tooth.
Brace for impact!
We've talked about the impacted canine, the maxillary impacted canine. Recently, I ran into another individual who had decided, for whatever reason, to take the unconventional approach to impacted canines. One of the videos that I made was about the option you need to know is that you could just leave it there. Although it's unconventional, you could just leave it there and it may just do nothing. This was the parent of one of the patients that was being evaluated. They had 4 baby canines. Sure enough, we took the x-ray and boom, here it is. 4 impacted canines.
Oh, it looks painful.
The baby canine in all 4 of those quadrants, they're still intact. They've lasted decades. Granted, this patient has never had orthodontic treatment. That's important to note. Maybe a little bit risky to try and move the other teeth around them because they could run into each other. And you have the baby teeth, which maybe don't look as good as permanent teeth. But you know what? It's worked out fantastic for this patient. So before we get into today's real discussion, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Let me know about your experience. I won't talk about all the specifics of impacted teeth and how you deal with them. So if you have questions, feel free to leave a comment. And of course, consider subscribing to this channel so that I can open your eyes to the wonders of straight teeth and beautiful bites. Like I said, that case was just so fascinating to me. We don't get to see those very often.
Very rare.
I think it proves a point that teeth, although they should normally come into your mouth, they could just stay stuck and not cause any problems. But there are consequences, you could say, as a result of those choices. Talk to your local orthodontist, figure out what's best for you. So let's say you do want to go with the traditional approach. I've got some x-rays here that will show you impacted teeth and what we did to improve this situation. So you heard the word I said at the very beginning, an expose and bond. Well, this is one of the traditional approaches to an impacted tooth and trying to get it into its right position. As you can see in an x-ray, this x-ray, the permanent tooth that should be in the mouth is stuck inside the bone. It could be because it doesn't have enough space or it deviated from course. You can see how the impacted tooth on the bottom started leaning over into the middle instead of coming more straight up. You got to make sure that there's enough space for that impacted tooth to come in. Usually with braces, sometimes with Invisalign, you create space. You can see on the x-ray here with the braces on all the teeth that there's a little bit of a spring in between 2 teeth where we're trying to create space. And that could take a few months.
Could be 1 month, could be 2 months.
3 months.
Could be.
Then, once you have the ideal space, you're going to be likely sent to another dental professional. Could be a specialist like an oral surgeon or a periodontist. Basically, we're getting into the expose and bond. The exposure means that you have to expose the tooth. It's covered by gums and sometimes bone, depending on where it's at. And so the dental professional will either make you go to sleep or get you really numb and then open up the gums. If they need to, they remove some bone so that they can find the tooth. And once they find the tooth, they glue like a bracket onto the tooth. Usually that bracket has a chain on it, like an anchor on a boat. That bracket and that chain is glued or bonded. Then they pull that chain all the way out, cover the gums back up, and they tie the chain onto the braces or some sort of Invisalign attachment. Now, you've gone through the expose and bond. Now begins the other part of the journey where we have to start pulling that in. I've got some pictures here. You've got some spring action that you can do with wires, as you can see in some of these, where the wire is bent over and then you tie it to the tooth, and then over time the wire whoop, pulls the tooth out into the mouth. One other option where you take some basically like thread, stretchy thread, and you tie it from the chain to the tooth or the bracket system. And then you have to do that over and over and over until it pulls the tooth all the way in. It's a lot of work. It's a long journey. So if you've got an impacted tooth and you're getting ready to go for the expose and bond, or you're committing to that idea of pulling that tooth into the mouth where it's supposed to be, just be ready. It's going to take a lot of time. You can be really patient with your provider and then just hang in there. Be patient with yourself. Most of the time, you can get that tooth all the way in and line it up real pretty, and most people can't tell that you ever had a tooth that was stuck. On occasion, as the orthodontist is trying to pull in, sometimes they get stuck. It's called ankylosis, where it gets fused to the bone. It doesn't happen happen very often, but it can happen. And so that can be a risk of trying to pull a tooth into the mouth that was stuck originally. Most people still choose to try to pull it in, and if it doesn't come in, then they just deal with it then, possibly extracting the tooth and replacing it with an implant or some sort of fake tooth. But you don't necessarily have to worry about that. Just try to get that tooth in first and deal with that if it comes. Talk to your local provider. Figure out if the expose and bond is the best solution for you and how you're gonna go about doing it. So hopefully that was insightful. You get to see some of these pictures and some of the systems to pull a tooth in. Good luck if you've got one. Remember, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you have any questions or comments about your experience, leave a comment below. Of course, consider subscribing to the channel so that I can open your eyes to the wonders of straight teeth and beautiful bites. That's all I've got. Just a little PFO, so you know where you're going. Packard out.